and also outline for you some strategies for improvement that we have in place. Basically, the information I'm going to share with you is what I shared with our teachers within a couple days of the final determinations coming out. But basically, as you can see from this letter, the federal standard is adequate yearly progress, or what we always refer to as AYP, and the state standard is PL221. When you look at AYP, you can see that our elementary school, our high school, and the district made AYP, and our middle school missed adequate yearly progress. And then when you go into these, do I not have this as a smart board? I didn't put it in notebook software. Okay, and you can see in the PL221 determinations, this is where we get into what's going to be the last year of labeling that the state has. A year from now, we'll be looking at this information, and it will be a letter grade, okay, where they're going to actually evaluate schools based on A, B, C, D, or F. But basically, the determinations for this year are exemplary, commendable, academic progress, academic watch, or academic probation. When you look at this information, our elementary school was commendable, our middle school was academic watch, our high school was exemplary, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit. And then our district was labeled academic watch, and basically for PL221 standards, the district gets the label of the lowest performing school. Now, for us, if we look up here, our first goal for our district goals for this school district is student achievement, and we say that we want to exceed the local, state, and national averages for student achievement in regards to, in this case, these determinations for AYP and PL221. And I think you can see on a positive note, let's go to the next page. This outlines our historical data, okay? You can see for this is not easy to get to. You can get to it at the DOE, but it takes about 5 minutes to pull 1 year's worth of data, and then you got to pull it for the district. And I didn't have all of this information collectively, and I wanted to get it. I wanted our people to see it. I wanted you to be able to see it, because as you look, we've been under this PL221 for the categories since 2005, yet we've been under AYP since 2003. So you can see here are the determinations that I just kind of briefly showed you in the letter, and then here are the AYP determinations, and you can see that at different times we have fluctuated between categories, either of making AYP or missing AYP, and then the different labels that we've had there. So if we go to the next page, I think it's a little more telling when you actually see the comparisons of what schools actually achieved. And that's what I want to point out for you tonight. This, first of all, is the PL221 categories, and you can see where people basically fell. I think it's very easy for anyone to be able to make a fairly valid argument that some of this data is not terribly valid, okay? And I could make that argument. I think you could make that argument. I think we could all say that some of this information, in terms of what that standard, that determination means, maybe isn't an appropriate determination for the school, but it's what it is. And as I've told everyone here, we're going to own the data that represents us, because in a year from now, people will understand that even better. But when you look at this and you see and you make comparisons for this one being the districts, public schools, and then it separates it by elementary school, middle school, high school. And let's just kind of show those three, if we can get it to where those three are at the top. Can you pull this up to the, yeah, thank you. So if you look at our elementary school, you can see that in the state, first of all, 53% of all the elementary schools in the state were exemplary, 10% were commendable. We were in this category for PL221 for our elementary school. We had an exemplary determination. Our middle school only 26% of middle schools were labeled exemplary, 6% commendable, and then you look down here and you go 43% were academic progress, 16% academic watch, 8% were academic probation for the middle schools. And you can see that when you compare these things, those things are very different between the determinations for elementary schools and high schools. When you get to this high school category, if we can pull that on up, when we look at this, our high school is actually at the exemplary level, which is 4% of all high schools, which means 17 actually were labeled exemplary. Of that 17, and Mr. Baker will kind of go through that with you, I think nine were actually academies or charter schools. Only eight of this number were actually public high schools out of 400 high schools. So when we look at that, that puts us in a really elite category for our high school determination, and we should celebrate that. When you look at the rest of this information, it shows that the bottom two categories represent 75% of the high schools. So you can see this is not a real bell curve between the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. The data is kind of everywhere. And it shows you really how much more difficult it is to be successful here at the high school, the way that we're being graded. Now, this is going to change. Steve can tell you in more detail but the high school accountability model for next year will be very different than it is for this year. And he's already working to make some changes at the high school level so that we will continue to be a well-reviewed, I guess, high school, but that standard for how they make those determinations will change. Next year it's going to be based in 4 categories instead of basically 2 right now. And one of the things that we'll have to look at are AP and dual credit offerings and our college and career readiness. Those are 2 of the areas that Steve's working hard on. He actually has written part of the high school accountability model for next year and helped the DOE to form that. So that's kind of helping us to stay ahead of it. But we've had a lot of people contact us and say, how did your high school do that? Because people around us just, for the most part, 300 out of 400 high schools are falling into these 2 categories. So we're really pleased with what the high school did, and that's the efforts of a lot of people, and even people throughout the district. But there's a very focused approach there, and I'll let Mr. Baker go into that more. The final thing I'll show you will be our AYP determinations, which is just the next page down. And I just want to show you basically here, at the elementary level, 76% of all elementary schools in the state made AYP. We made AYP. At the middle school level, only 48% of schools in the state of Indiana made AYP. We fell into this 52%. We did not meet AYP at the middle school level. And then you can see how much more even difficult it is for high schools to make this determination of AYP, because only 18% of the high schools in the state made AYP. So we can certainly, again, argue the inconsistencies of that data in terms of how all the schools were evaluated, but this is how they were evaluated. So we have to go by this, and we have to basically, we want at minimum ourselves to be in the top half of all schools. That's a goal that we've set as a district, and in some cases we're exceeding that. I've highlighted the high school, we're exceeding that greatly, and in other cases we've got some work to do, and we're about doing that work. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Doug Thiem, and he's going to go kind of into a little more detail on the elementary.
By the way, Mr. Gibson, I did not plan on dressing similarly.
This is my son.
Okay, this is our 221 category, as Mr. Barker discussed. And what it comes down to is two areas. This is our most previous performance. 81.4% of our third and fourth graders combined passed ISTEP. Okay. Now, while in previous years that's been in the high 70s, but as we look here, this is our current current year. The actual third graders, now fourth graders, is 77.2%. Is 77.2% of the students passed last spring. Previously, our fourth graders 77.9%, which would be now at the middle school. So when you compare those two numbers, our current year improvement is a negative 0.7. So we were, if you compare that down to here, our performance percent was in the 80% range, and we were less than 1% improvement. So that puts us in the commendable category. So what we have to do this year is we're looking at those third graders, their performance, finding out those students that are not passing, and how can we get them to pass. If you look at that, of our students in fourth grade this year, we need to be at least 1.3% improvement to get us up in this exemplary category, which comes out to be approximately 3 students passing out of our current fourth graders. If you can see our historical of 221 categories, we're Academic Watch in 05, Academic Watch in 06, Commendable in 07, and then Academic Watch in 08, and then this year Commendable. So now we want to target those students so that we can be exemplary, or in next year's case, an A school. Any questions with that? If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Our historical for AYP, if you look here, we made AYP every year, including this year with the exception of 2004. And the green areas are all the areas that we made AYP in. We made AYP in overall white and free and reduced students. We even made it in attendance. If you look down here, as we'll break it down, we did not have enough special ed students that actually, this breaks it down a little bit further. This is our overall students. Our pass percent in math and English, 77.4%, 78.2%. And when they compare to the target pass with the confidence level, since we have a confidence level, we don't go by this target pass here. We go with the confidence level because of our numbers are so small. And they understand that with a smaller number, students when you have students that don't pass, it's going to impact your numbers even greater. So we did make it in this area, in English and math. We made AYP in overall. And also in student participation. We had our 2-year average, we've had 98%, 98.8% in English and 98.6% participation. Because if you don't meet the percentage of participation, you can miss AYP. That's students actually taking ISTEP. And then our attendance rate for this group of students, we made AYP. And you can see that we're 96.8%, and our target was 95. This is our white student population. Again, we made AYP in all areas for English and math. We actually was we were above both in our target pass with the confidence level, and then same with our student participation. Free and reduced, we made AYP in all areas. And and even in our student participation. What I do want to get to is our special ed numbers. If we had enough students to include special ed in a subgroup, we did not make AYP yet. We would have not made AYP outright. We had to meet AYP under safe harbor. And as you can see, we missed our pass percent with our confidence level. But how we made it under safe harbor is we've reduced the percent of number of students by 10%. Reduced failing by 10%. So we had our previous target did not pass percent was 51.3, and then our did not pass the previous year was 52.9. So we did make it under safe harbor for those. What are we doing to address AYP and 221? Our fourth grade team has already taken our professional day. We did that last week, and they're looking at learning connection data to identify weak areas that can be addressed in our curriculum and our student individual weaknesses. They're making some adjustments in their scheduling for next year to target students. We're also going to do some flex grouping within our math. They're going to have 3 levels of math based on student need. High level, a middle level, and a low level with our students. And then we're currently targeting 3rd and 4th grade students for remediation in reading and math. And they also analyzed in 4th grade if we have those correct students in those groups that we need to. So there are some students that we've added to our remediation groups that we've noticed that are not achieving where we expect them to achieve. To also mention in our 4th grade, we're addressing the special ed issue. We're using our remediation assistant to target those students in the classroom and in our remediation groups. As I mentioned in remediation, we have those in 3rd and 4th grade. I am personally meeting with the remediation assistant twice a month and sitting down with them and saying, okay, and right now I'm just targeting reading, because we know that if students are not able to read on ISTEP, that they're going to struggle in both areas, math and reading. And so I asked them, tell me about the students and what does each individual student struggle in reading. And what we're finding out is the majority of our students in remediation, they're fluent readers, no comprehension. So last week, or the week before last week, we're talking about areas that we can target comprehension, assess their progress, and activities in which we can address that. And then I'm meeting with that assistant then this coming Friday. There's 2 questions that I asked them: how are our students doing, and how do we know? And we're also going to do progress monitoring and our DIBELS assessment with those students. We've expanded this year Title I services to 3rd and 4th grade for struggling readers. We're targeting some students in our Tier 3 students, which is the most at-risk student. We're providing Wilson reading to. It's a very small group working on reading skills and phonics skills. We've implemented DIBELS assessment in grades 2 and 4. So now we will have all grades getting this across our building. We're going to start looking at that data to see how the reading skills of our students, and how we can currently use this to determine Tier 2 and Tier 3 reading strategies, and if they need Wilson reading or not also. We're planning possible additional remediation opportunities for students in grade 1 and 2 using possible Title I funds. We have an exciting website that we've come across called Reading Games. We're doing some research on that, on how it impacts the students' reading skills. And we're using it currently with full-day kindergarten students on a free trial basis, and also our special ed students. And it is a constant repetition of sounds and letter recognition. You'll be hearing more about the reading plan as this year unfold. We're planning is taking place building-wide for implementation of Indiana's reading plan to ensure literacy by the end of 3rd grade for next school year, which will mandate if students do not have a reading score on third grade that is passing, that'll be some kind of a retention policy, which is different. Also, it's something that we're working on in our response intervention. We're going to restructure probably next year our Title I program. You have to look at the 90-minute uninterrupted block of literacy instruction. You can't have announcements, you can't have anything during that 90-minute block. You can't even pull off Title I services. So that's going to impact our building. We need to implement data walls for each grade level. That's going to look different based on the data that we have. In grades 2 through 4, we have DIBELS data. I'm sorry, grades K through 2, we have DIBELS data. In grades 3 through 4, we also have DIBELS data, but we also have other aspects of data in grades 3 and 4 that we don't have, that we need to implement a data wall. This will give us a quick vision. This will give us a visual of how students are progressing, how we can move students, manipulate those students to see what groups they're in their interventions. Matter of fact, our principal's advisory team is meeting tomorrow. We're going to look at the weakness of special education achievement scores and how can we track these students to see their growth or lack of growth. Some other things that kind of came to mind that we're doing. We are progress monitoring students in grades K and 1. Some students, based on their needs, we're progress monitoring every 2 weeks, some every 4 weeks, to see if the interventions and strategies we're using in Title I or in the classroom are being effective, and if they're growing, we're closing that achievement gap. As Mr. Gibson might speak, we have found that NWEA was good in its time, but we're finding other tools that we might be able to use. It's called Acuity in grades 3 and 4. It'll be a great program that is given several times a year, as NWEA is, and we can use those tools within that program to individualize instruction. It has a remediation component. Students can go in and do lessons so that then they can assess how they're doing on the standards. It's very closely aligned to ISTEP, and it's also aligned to our new core common standards and curriculum maps. That's where we're at this point.
Any questions for Mr. Thing? Okay, thanks, Doug.
I came to you in the fall, and we talked about ISTEP. We said that we weren't real pleased with our scores. So when AYP and PL221 came out, it didn't surprise us, it concerned us. As you saw in our categories, we were judged on 17 categories, just like the elementary school. Unlike the elementary school, because we had 4 grades, we did have a group of 30. You have to have a group of 30 in order to count towards your AYP status. So our special education population, we had 58 students. In our free and reduced lunch group, of course, we had 156 students. And those were we're proud that we made AYP in 13 out of the 17, but we have to look at those 4 categories that it's not fitting on the page, John. So we looked at those subgroups. Now we didn't pass English or math performance in our free and reduced lunch and in our special education population.
If that's a notebook software, you should be able to just pull it up with your hand. I think you did a notebook, didn't you? The other way. Yeah, you did. You skip to the next page.
You should be able to do the left arrow and go back down.
I did.
All the data is on.
But I can't get it up.
Pull it down.
Have in each category. And what I wanted to see is how are we doing, how far below the target were we? And we were 4.7% below target in English and 5.7 below target in math, which related to 7 and 8 students out of this 155 free and reduced lunch. Special education, we had more. We had 24.5% that that we were below target in English, and 14.9%, but that equals 14 students and 9 students. And we didn't fit into the safe harbor provision either. As we talked about the PL221 categories, that has to do with performance. And as Doug kind of alluded to, we were in the 70% area of performance right here, and we went down 0.3%. So when you go down and you're at 70% performance, percent passing, that's less than 1%, and that put us in the academic watch. So we already know that. We want to know what we're going to do about it. 3 things that we felt we needed to do. We needed to have identification and have it targeted. We needed to have remediation. After we target those students, we have to figure out how we're going to remediate them. And then we wanted to then have to assess them. The way we targeted, we did basically 3 things. We asked the teachers to develop a more conscientious approach to homeschool communication. We can't do this alone. We have to include the parents. So any student that was in jeopardy of failing a class, the teacher will communicate with either a phone call, an email, or a conference. One of the other things that we have done, we have ramped up, if you will, our RTI, which is response to intervention, and Doug just kind of talked about that. This year we have identified through teacher recommendations and the work that the students are doing, we've identified 16 students that we've had over 55 meetings on throughout the year to what Doug talked about, develop tier 2, tier 3 kinds of interventions. Some go on to testing through the special education program to see in more detail some of the problems that they're having. We also have developed curriculum days where our core academic departments have gotten together. We have 3 out of the 4 that have taken an entire day to look at curriculum maps, and I know Mrs. Meitzler was here earlier in the year helping on those curriculum maps. We brought her in and she went through curriculum maps and talked with our staff on how to use that. I was showing you at the beginning of the year, every teacher has a data book. In that data book has all the I-STEP, all the STAR testing, all of the NWEA data that we have, so that we can look at individual students. We can see where they're at, and they use that day to really delve into that. And then they develop strategies on what they're going to do to improve those students that they have identified. So after we've identified those students, then we want to find out how we can help them. So we look at what areas of remediation can we focus on. We have got 2 remediation aides hired specifically to work with kids. Last year we used them in a kind of a different capacity, and This year we started it out that way, where they would go around to each grade level, really 1 day a week. Some would get 2 since we have 5 days in a week. After looking at the data, we decided that we really needed to concentrate. It was kind of like, I analogized it to saying, well, we all have a cold, but I only have 1 pill, so I'm going to divide it up into a little bit, so everybody gets a little bit. And we felt maybe that wasn't the best strategy, because we needed to intervene as early as we possibly can. And so we have 2 licensed teachers that act as aides in math and language arts. They focus primarily on the 5th grade, but when the 5th grade is in their related arts block, they will go and they'll move up to the 6th grade. We started Reading Plus with Rosemary Henderson last year, and found it was very successful. The data proved that it helped lots of kids. We expanded that to 6th grade this year, so we've got 2 sections of 6th graders. Probably the thing that we felt the most helpful was we needed to extend the time for these kids if we could. And so we started an Excel program, which stood for Extended Classroom Enhanced Learning Program. It was an after-school program. We identified kids. The way we identified kids was through a rubric. We looked at all the kids. We looked at their ISEP score, their NWEA score, their STAR score, their classroom performance, if they were on free and reduced lunch, and if they had special education. Because we wanted to target the kids that needed it the most. Obviously, if a kid did not pass math or language arts, he got a 3 in ISEP. And then we just totaled it up. Teachers spent hours looking up this information and doing that. And then on November 1st, we started the Excel program. But I wanted this program to be a buy-in with the parents, back up to the parent communication and the homeschool relationship. So we put together a parent agreement form, which at parent-teacher conferences or in individual conferences, we had parents agree that they would encourage their child to do their personal best, that they would see that they attended the Excel program, kind of a mini parent pledge that we did, but only for the Excel program. We currently then have teachers who then volunteered to participate. I've got 14 teachers. I had more people interested in doing the program. It's 4 days a week after school. Monday, Wednesday is math. Tuesday, Thursday, language arts. We have approximately 40 students. We wanted to keep the classes small so that, again, that they could be focused on. And like I say, every teacher that is working in this program is a licensed teacher, and we really think it's something that will go on through probably May, once the spring hits and ball season hits and those kinds of things. We will relook at this. So the last piece of the puzzle is assessment. And one of the things that we decided to do, although NWEA may be going out, it is a valuable tool. It gives us a lot of information. And we normally did it in the fall and the spring. Our contract is such you can do it 3, maybe even 4 times a year if you wish to. And so we decided that we would like to do it at least earlier. So we're going to do, we've scheduled it for mid-January, we're going to do NWEA testing to assess how we're doing. Where are those kids? Were they growing? Are they still in need? So we're adding that. And Doug mentioned acuity. We probably had 20, 25 elementary, middle school teachers, along with Mr. Metler and Mr. Thiem, go up to East Noble to their middle school and to Avila Elementary School and look at acuity, which is the state test, administered 4 times. And so we're looking at other ways. We've also looked at a program called ALEX, which is a math program that some of the high school, I think the high school is going to start using it after, because we get like 100 students, 90 days or something like that to do. So those are the kinds of things. We're really doing a lot, focusing a lot on identification, remediation, and assessment. And we're going to, those scores are going to improve. We just feel very confident about that.